will speak about their investigative work in the abortion industry. Many women should know that. I think that's the part that women don't know, and it's completely unfair. Our witnesses today will speak about their investigative work in the abortion industry. Several of the findings include undercover videos of Planned Parenthood executives and abortionists discussing their illegal work, the stitching of aborted baby scalps onto mice for HIV and vaccine research, the University of California, San Diego, granting Planned Parenthood ownership of all patents and intellectual property developed through the research and experiments using the supplied fetal tissue, and the University of Pittsburgh using a research technique which calls for aborting late-term fetuses alive via labor induction and then cutting them open to harvest their livers. Furthermore, we will learn more about the 5 second and third trimester babies known as Justice for the 5, who were tragically discovered to have been partially born alive, murdered, and then disposed of to an energy company. Before we turn it over to our witnesses for their opening statements, I'd like to briefly introduce them. David Daleiden is a journalist with nearly a decade of experience in conducting investigative research on the abortion industry. In 2013, David started the Center for Medical Progress, CMP, to pursue impactful investigative journalism, protected projects pertaining to contemporary bioethical issues, including abortion. Prior to CMP, David worked as a director of research for a national media education and advocacy organization. David is a graduate of Claremont McKenna College. His writings have appeared in various publications, and he has appeared on several radio and television broadcasts to discuss the important work he does. Thank you, David, for being here. Teresa Bukovac is a progressive activist, founder, and national leader in the American pro-life movement. For nearly a decade, she has worked through a secular framework to address the tragedy of abortion violence on demand in America. She was a co-discoverer of the 5 late-term aborted babies that were discovered at an abortion clinic in DC in 2022. Teresa is the founder of Progressive Anti-Abortion Uprising, PAAU, a left-wing pro-life, previously founded a group called Pro-Life San Francisco, which has become an important voice in the political activism landscape. She is the former president of Democrats for Life of America and previously founded a group called Pro-Life San Francisco, who exposes the horrors of fetal organ harvesting at the University of California, San Francisco. Teresa, thank you for being here. I'd now like to turn it over to Mr. Daleiden for his opening statement.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Representative. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. My name is David Daleiden. I'm the founder and president of the Center for Medical Progress, a nonprofit investigative journalism organization that focuses on bioethical issues that impact human dignity, with a special focus on the trafficking and harvesting of aborted babies for experimentation. Before we begin today, I want to acknowledge that some of the many people viewing this hearing may have had a personal experience with abortion, and to express my concern that the taxpayer-funded abortion industry should never be in a position to exploit the circumstances that may have led you to have that experience. And also to note that what we will discuss today may be graphic. My organization is responsible for the series of undercover video reports in 2015 that caught Planned Parenthood's top-level leadership callously negotiating the harvesting and sale of aborted baby body parts. I'd like to play some of that footage now.
We've been very good at getting parts on liver because we know that so I'm not going to crush that part. I'm going to basically crush below, I'm going to crush above, and I'm going to see if I can get it intact. A lot of people want intact parts these days because they're looking for specific nodes, AB nodes, SA. I was like, wow, I didn't even know. Good for them. Yesterday was the first time she said people wanted lungs. And then she But like I said, always as many intact livers as possible.
What would you expect for intact tissue? What sort of compensation? What sort of...
Well, why don't you start by telling me what you're used to paying? I want a Lamborghini. I want a Lamborghini.
Because that's how we're going to keep you happy,
Yes,
right?
yes.
To make sure that financially
Yes.
you're growing your clinic and however you need to say that, frame it on the other end.
Yes. So if we alter our process and we are able to obtain intact fetal cadavers, it's all just a matter of line items.
My undercover work in the abortion industry and subsequent investigative reporting has shown me a very dark and broken side of humanity. I've watched the handling of dismembered babies inside some of the biggest Planned Parenthood abortion centers in the country, while their research officials discussed how to disguise the sales. I've met with dozens of Planned Parenthood's top abortion providers at their lavish commercial abortion trade shows, sponsored by companies buying baby parts. At these trade shows, I consumed far more alcoholic beverages with abortion providers than my liver would like to admit, as they talked about the harvesting and sale of aborted baby livers. Sometimes I actually saw them start to tear up, describing the tiny brains and hearts and feet of premature babies that they dismember and brutalize before selling them, only to then see them steel themselves and shake it off as they tried to suppress the heresy of human feelings that the dogma of industrial-scale abortion cannot allow. I'll never forget when early on in my research, a whistleblower from fetal body parts company STEM Express told me about the biggest liver her lab had ever sold from a baby aborted at 5 months at the Planned Parenthood in Sacramento, California. They took the stem cells from the liver, put them in a vial, and sold them for $17,000 to another taxpayer-funded laboratory. Planned Parenthood says 75% of abortions take place because of financial problems. $17,000 might have been somebody's rent money for the next year. But for the abortion clinics selling and the government-funded laboratories buying, that 5-month-old baby was worth more dead than alive. I've also witnessed the apparent apathy of too many public officials in the face of such barbarism. It led one of my undercover investigators to remark in exasperation, if we asked STEM Express to ship a baby's head to the sheriff's doorstep, would they care more then? That was an ethical line that I did not feel like we could cross. I wish the taxpayer-funded clinics and laboratories involved shared the same views. Recent government-sponsored experiments on aborted baby parts involve stitching the scalps of 5-month-old aborted babies onto lab rats to keep the baby hair growing on the rodents. This was done at the University of Pittsburgh to develop a new experimental platform to sell to Big Pharma. FOIA documents we recently reported on show the fetal tissue bank at Pitt is under federal law enforcement investigation by the HHS Office of Inspector General. But since Congress members requested this investigation 3 years ago, there has been no update from the OIG. But our investigative reporting is ongoing. 2 weeks ago, we broke the story about a contract Planned Parenthood has with the University of California, where Planned Parenthood and UC San Diego agree for Planned Parenthood to sell its, quote, proprietary aborted fetuses in exchange for the, quote, valuable consideration of ownership of the patents and intellectual property the university develops using them, which could be worth millions of dollars in ongoing royalties. The transfer of any aborted fetal tissue for, quote, valuable consideration is a federal felony. But describing aborted babies as proprietary means Planned Parenthood thinks they own them and have a right to sell them. Whatever the total amount of the sales, this contract is irrefutable proof of Planned Parenthood's criminal mens rea to sell aborted baby body parts in violation of federal law. The abortion industry, led by Planned Parenthood, is a powerful special interest in our country. They fight to silence reporting on their black market of aborted baby organ harvesting, and the ongoing cover-up goes to the highest levels of our government. Kamala Harris, as the Planned Parenthood-endorsed Attorney General of California in 2016, raided my apartment to seize hundreds of hours of unreleased undercover footage. Some of the biggest Planned Parenthood abortion centers got a federal judge in San Francisco who previously opened and funded a Planned Parenthood clinic to issue a federal injunction against the release of the remaining footage. I and my organization now face a total $25 million fine for our investigative reporting. I guess being able to continue to sell baby parts is worth at least $25 million to Planned Parenthood. Aborted babies are only valuable for Planned Parenthood to harvest and sell, and for government-funded laboratories to buy, precisely because they are human beings just like us. But the message that our civilization needs now more than ever is that the value of every human being is infinite. At a time when powerful government and media forces are trying to silence this message, and well-meaning public officials sometimes struggle to find their voice, it is imperative for the People's House to reopen formal investigations of the black market in aborted baby organ harvesting so that taxpayer-funded entities can never put a price tag on human beings. Thank you.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here. I am the founder of Progressive Anti-Abortion Uprising. I'm also an atheist. Progressive Anti-Abortion Uprising organizes activists for direct action, but also opposes abortion through a leftist lens. But in 2016, I left my corporate career in fashion to found my first organization, Pro-Life San Francisco. I wanted to help families in crisis, and I wanted to be a voice for the unborn in one of the most pro-abortion cities on the planet. But soon after, I learned that the top abortion training program in the country was headquartered at the University of California, San Francisco. It's called the Ryan Residency. And I also found out that UCSF was engaged in some very high-profile fetal tissue research projects. Alec, could you put up that first slide for me? This is just showing that by 2016, they had trained nearly 3,000 OBGYNs to perform abortions. And you can go to the next slide. So one of these studies that I found out that they were involved in involved humanizing the immune systems of cohorts of mice. And according to the National Institutes of Health, this project required 2 pristine, electively aborted fetuses per month. And the notes in the study suggest that all of them were between the ages of 18 and 24 weeks. That means that many of them were viable and could survive outside of the womb if provided medical care. You can go to the next slide. So UCSF, according to their own online public training modules, performs second trimester abortions 2 ways, either through D&E, a dismemberment procedure, or through a labor induction. Now, because feticidal injections like digoxin, which you mentioned in your opening statement, cannot be used in cases where the fetus is intended for research because it destroys the stem cells. Because of that reason, we know that these dismemberment procedures are being done on fully live, pain-capable, and sometimes viable babies. And the next slide. According to the Society of Family Planning, which is a pro-choice organization and backed up recently by the University of Vienna, labor induction abortions without the use of digoxin past 20 weeks produces born-alive infants half of the time. This raises very serious concerns about the treatment of abortion survivors in these research scenarios. Now, the Humanized Mouse Project went on for nearly 20 years and received almost $30 million from the federal government alone. Last year, you can see in 2022, the federal government spent $57 million on fetal tissue research. And so in the years that I've been battling with the university over public records requests, I finally was given access to some of the fetal tissue logs that came to me in the form of dozens of these types of emails. You'll see the one at the bottom says, the sample I collected today, gut and spleen. Have a great weekend and Thanksgiving. Next to it, you'll see pelvis, external genitalia, lower half of body. There are just dozens of emails like this. Now, it has been 8 years since the Select Panel on Infant Lives gave more than a dozen criminal referrals for several abortion industry entities. And from what I can tell, the DOJ has done nothing. It is really disturbing that private citizens like David and I have had to go in and battle with these universities over records that the DOJ has already had. And this negligence has spanned 3 presidential administrations. Now, on March 25th, 2022, if you can go to the next slide, my colleague Lauren Handy and I went to the Washington Surgery Center. This was after I founded Progressive Anti-Abortion Uprising. We were going to this clinic to help moms in crisis. But when we got there, I took this photo of this truck that was parked outside Curtis Bay Medical Waste Services. You can see the boxes here on the dolly. We approached the driver and convinced him to give us the box. When we opened the box, inside were the remains of 115 aborted fetuses and embryos. 5 of them were very late term. Experts believe them to be the ages of 24 and 33 weeks. Now, 2 of them were completely whole, and given their gestational age, that's a good indication that they were likely born alive. There was a 3rd that I would like to show you, but it is a very graphic image. I wanted to warn you before, but that's okay. You went for it anyways. This is a baby girl we named Harriet. As you can see, she is totally intact, but at the base of her skull, there is an incision where it appears that her brain has been suctioned out and her skull has been crushed. These are hallmark wounds of an illegal partial birth abortion procedure. Now, these babies were not intended for fetal tissue research. They were headed for an incinerator, a Curtis Bay incinerator, to provide renewable energy for the city of Baltimore. You can go to the next slide. This is my colleague, Lauren Handy. Now, the DOJ has also seemingly done nothing to investigate the deaths of the 5, but they did spend time and resources prosecuting and ultimately convicting my friend Lauren under the FACE Act for doing a totally nonviolent sit-in at that same clinic where we found the babies. And these are the other defendants that stood trial with her. They are all in prison right now awaiting sentencing. They've been in prison for more than 7 months. You can go to the next slide. Oh, there wasn't one. Okay, yeah. So Lauren and I, we have literally seen the victims of abortion extremism. We have held them in our own hands. We have looked at them face to face. Okay, they were not trash to be burned. They were not spare parts to be experimented on. They were human beings just like you and me. Now, I'm going to conclude my opening testimony with a video that I took that day that we opened the box. What you're watching is my colleague Lauren opening the first bucket that we opened, which contained the remains of a baby boy we named Christopher X. The voice you hear on the video is mine. This is extremely graphic, so I want to warn you, but I'm so happy to be here today. I'm so grateful, and I look forward to hearing your questions. Thank you.
I think he was born. I think he was like. He's whole.
He's whole.
He's whole.
Oh my God. Oh, rest in peace, little tiny.
These people. This is not fucking okay. Okay. I don't know what to do next. Where is the deacon? He's right here. Okay, little baby.